Hey, if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that noti bell because it really helps out. There comes a moment in every saga where the story reaches its emotional and thematic apex, where every beat, every decision, and every shred of dialogue echoes with the weight of destiny. And for Star Wars, that moment is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. No other installment in the franchise so thoroughly embodies the mythic gravitas, operatic emotion, and gut-wrenching tragedy that George Lucas set out to capture when he first dreamed up this galaxy so far, far away. While The Empire Strikes Back may be heralded by critics as the pinnacle of technical filmmaking and narrative subversions within the series, it does not, and cannot, hit the same visceral, soul-shattering impact as Revenge of the Sith. Episode 3 is the most emotionally devastating, thematically rich, and narratively essential film in the entire Star Wars canon. It is the culmination of years of storytelling, a preordained fall brought to life with a haunting sense of inevitability, where it is not merely just a film. It is the moment where light finally gives way to darkness, where a beloved hero is consumed by rage and sorrow, and where the galaxy begins its descent into tyranny, despair, and shadow. From the thunderous opening over the Battle of Coruscant to the harrowing final duel on the volcanic plains of Mustafar, Revenge of the Sith burns with a raw emotional intensity that no other Star Wars film dares to match. It is the most Shakespearean chapter in the saga, drenched in betrayal, moral ambiguity, and heartbreaking irony. Anakin Skywalker's transformation into Darth Vader isn't just a plot point, it is a tragedy of operatic proportions rendered with staggering gravitas and emotional complexity. The performances are charged with anguish and sincerity, with John Williams' score being at its most potent and soul-stirring, with Lucas's direction, often underappreciated with this prequel trilogy, is also at its most focused and mythically charged. While The Empire Strikes Back excels in subverting expectations and deepening character arcs, Revenge of the Sith defines what Star Wars is at its core, a mythic tale of destiny, love, sacrifice, and catastrophic loss. It doesn't just challenge the heart, it breaks it, and that is why, for many die-hard fans like myself, it stands not only as the greatest Star Wars film ever made, but as the truest embodiment of what the saga was always meant to be. At the heart of Revenge of the Sith lies one of cinema's most agonizingly powerful character arcs, and that is the fall of Anakin Skywalker. What makes this chapter in the Skywalker saga so deeply affecting is not simply the fact that we witness a hero become a villain, but that we understand why it happens. George Lucas doesn't present Anakin's descent into darkness as a moment of spontaneous corruption. Instead, it is carefully, methodically, heartbreakingly constructed across every scene, every conversation, and every decision. We see a young man torn between two worlds, crushed under the weight of expectations from the Jedi, manipulated by the sinister whispers of Chancellor Palpatine, and haunted by visions of loss he feels powerless to prevent. This isn't just a sudden betrayal of character, it's the slow erosion of a soul, and the brilliance of Revenge of the Sith lies in how it intimately invites us into that collapse. The tragedy doesn't come from the fall itself, it comes from how inevitable it feels by the time it happens. Anakin's fear of losing Padme is the emotional nuclear of the film, and it is that raw, consuming, and utterly human feeling that sets him on the irreversible path to becoming Darth Vader. This is where Lucas's storytelling hits with mythic force. It isn't just that Anakin chooses the dark side, it's that he genuinely believes it's the only way to save the person he loves most in the entire galaxy. His motivations aren't born out of a blind ambition or greed, they're carved from the deepest and desperate instincts of a broken heart. There is a vulnerability to Anakin that makes his transformation even more painful to watch, because beneath his mounting rage and distrust lies a good man begging for someone to guide him. But that guidance never comes, not from the Jedi who treat him as both an outsider and weapon, nor from Obi-Wan, whose brotherly love is tragically outpaced by duty. Only Palpatine listens. reasons. Only Palpatine offers hope, and therein lies the greatest manipulation ever orchestrated in Star Wars. It's the ultimate betrayal, not just of Anakin, but of everything the Jedi failed to protect. What Revenge of the Sith does better than any Star Wars film, especially those horrendous, abhorrent sequels, is force us to sit with the pain of watching someone we admire and have looked up to growing up, wish we could stop the decisions that he inevitably makes. This isn't a film filled with convenient morality or comforting answers. It presents a galaxy unraveling at the seams, a chosen one consumed by his own fear and the machinations of a master manipulator. Lucas ensures we never forget that this is a tragedy. The opera scene between Anakin and Palpatine is the embodiment of this time. Quiet, atmospheric, and chilling in its intimacy. No lightsaber clashes, no soaring score, just whispered corruption in the dim glow of a galactic theater. These moments are what elevate Episode 3 from mere spectacle to cinematic myth. Anakin's fall isn't just a plot point to get us to Darth Vader, it is the emotional crux of the entire prequel trilogy, and by extension, the entire Skywalker saga, which culminated in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It forces us to reckon with the truth that heroes can fall, and that love, when warped by fear, can become a weapon against the very soul that wields it. The transformation is complete, not in one grand moment, but in a series of quiet choices and desperate rationalizations that gradually pull Anakin further and further from the light. By the time he kneels before Palpatine and accepts the title of Darth Vader, it doesn't feel like a triumph, it feels almost like a funeral. The music swells, not with grandeur, but with mourning. We, the audience, aren't just witnessing a shift in galactic politics, we're grieving the loss of a person who once stood for hope. That's what makes Revenge of the Sith so overwhelmingly powerful. It forces you to feel the weight of Anakin's loss, not just to the Jedi, but to himself. In this, Lucas achieves something few films ever do. He transforms myth into heartbreak. And once you've felt that weight, once you've watched Anakin burn on the slopes of Mustafar with tears in your eyes, you begin to understand why Episode 3 is not just a chapter in the saga, it is the very soul of it. Perhaps no other dynamic in the entire Star Wars saga is as emotionally layered and fundamentally heartbreaking as the bond between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. In Revenge of the Sith, this relationship becomes the emotional fulcrum around which the entire tragedy pivots. From the outset, their camaraderie is evident. Two warriors forged in the fires of war, brothers in arms who have faced death together more times than they can count. With their banter, their synchronized combat, and their shared respect, painting a portrait of deep friendship. One that has endured conflict, doubt, and the growing chasm between the Jedi and the galaxy they claim to protect. But underneath the surface lies a subtle tension, a sense that they are walking toward an unavoidable reckoning. Blind to the storm gathering between them, Obi-Wan represents the ideal Jedi duty, stoic, composed, selfless, while Anakin embodies the emotional instinct, passion, and attachment that the galaxy itself feels at any given moment. Their love for one another is real, but it is nowhere near enough to overcome the ideological fault lines that will eventually shatter their bond forever. The genius of Revenge of the Sith lies in how it lets its relationship unravel with aching restraint. Obi-Wan trusts Anakin, but not fully. He loves him, but cannot fully understand him. When the Jedi Council asks Obi-Wan to spy on Palpatine, it is a turning point not just for Anakin, but for their bond. To Anakin, it feels like the biggest betrayal, not from a stranger, but from someone he considered his brother and father figure, the one person who should have stood up for him when no one else would have. Obi-Wan, ever the dutiful Jedi, follows orders, believing he is doing what is best for the Order and for Anakin, as well as for the Republic, not realizing that in this moment, trust is being irrevocably damaged. This subtle fracture grows within every scene until it becomes a chasm neither can cross. The tragedy is not born out of hatred, but from love miscommunicated, trust misplaced, and loyalty torn apart by forces far larger than either man can understand. That's what makes their story so gut-wrenching. It isn't just a mere friendship lost. It is a brotherhood broken by the very ideals they once fought to uphold together. Their final confrontation on Mustafar is not simply just a one-of-a-kind battle that you see in Star Wars, it is a culmination of years of love, frustration, disappointment, and denial. There is no joy in this duel, no triumphant music, only raw, blistering emotion. Obi-Wan doesn't want to have to kill Anakin, he wants to save him, to pull him back from the edge, to reach through the dark fog, clouding his former apprentice's mind. But Anakin, now fully consumed by fear, rage, and betrayal, no longer sees Obi-Wan as a brother or father figure, he sees him as an enemy, a symbol of everything that has gone wrong with the Jedi Order. When Obi-Wan says,
"You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!"
it isn't just a final plea, it's a man shattering under the weight of his own failure. That single line resonates across the saga because it is the raw truth of their story. Love wasn't enough, and in that moment, Obi-Wan isn't the wise Jedi Master. We see the man beneath the robes, devastated and alone, realizing that the person he raised and loved is now lost to him forever. It's this emotional devastation that elevates Revenge of the Sith far beyond typical action fare. The film forces you to feel the cost of war, of pride, of institutional blindness. It shows how even the strongest bonds can be torn apart by fear and ideology, how duty can sometimes betray the very people it seeks to protect. The fall of Anakin Skywalker is inseparable, where from the heartbreak of Obi-Wan Kenobi, one cannot begin to understand that there is one without the other. Their story isn't a subplot, it is the tragedy. It is the reason the duel on Mustafar burns so vividly in the minds of fans. It's not just the fire and choreography, it's the emotion that scorches through every strike, every scream, and every gut-wrenching tear. It's the pain of a brother forced to destroy the only family he has ever known, and in that pain, Revenge of the Sith cements its place as not only one of the most emotionally resonant films in the Star Wars saga, but also at its most shatteringly human. If Revenge of the Sith is the emotional heart of the Star Wars saga, then John Williams' score is its very soul. Aching, majestic, and utterly unforgettable. From the film's opening moments, as the thunderous drums of the Battle of Heroes emerge beneath the chaos of the space battle over Coruscant, it becomes clear that the music in Episode 3 is not simply just an accompaniment, it is a storytelling force in its own right. Williams, already a master of cinematic composition, reaches new emotional heights with this very score, blending grandeur with grief, rage with regret, into an operatic soundscape that resonates through every frame. Unlike previous entries, which leaned heavily on the themes of adventure and hope, the music of Revenge of the Sith is soaked in inevitability. It doesn't just guide the narrative, it mourns it in real time, as if even the orchestra knows that this is the end of something sacred. Battle of the Heroes stands as a towering achievement, not just in Star Wars, but in film music altogether. It is the very essence of tragic spectacle, haunting choral arrangements, sweeping musical strings, and pounding timpani that mirror the emotional weight of Obi-Wan and Anakin's final confrontation. This is not a heroic theme, this is a requiem for a fallen legend. The music is almost operatic in its intensity, matching every lightsaber strike with sorrow, every scream with despair, where unlike the triumphant Duel of the Fates from The Phantom Menace, Battle of the Heroes doesn't celebrate combat, it mourns what has been lost because of it. That's what makes it so powerful. The choir doesn't sing of victory, it weeps, it bleeds, and when paired with the fiery carnage of Mustafar, it transcends sound and becomes emotion itself, raw, heavy, unforgettable. Williams knew this was not just another duel, this was destiny fracturing under the weight of pain, and his music immortalizes that heartbreak in every beautiful note. But beyond the spectacle of its major themes, the score of Revenge of the Sith is remarkable for its emotional nuance and interwoven motifs. Listen closely and you'll hear the quiet echoes of Across the Stars, Anakin and Padme's love theme, subtly folded into moments of dread and sorrow. Its once romantic melody now hollowed out, distorted and tragic. In one of the film's most devastating sequences, the silent march of Anakin towards the Jedi Temple, Williams strips everything down to eerie, monastic chanting. It's a pure masterstroke. The silence of betrayal is scored not with percussion or brass, but with ghostly voices that seem to sing from beyond the grave. Even Palpatine's rise is paired with sinister undertones that evolve into full-blown operatic horror as the Empire is born. The use of thematic callbacks like the dark variation of the Force theme as Anakin kneels before Palpatine adds layers of tragic irony, reminding us that this saga, which began with promise, is collapsing under its own fate. And then there is the finale, the mournful coda to the prequel trilogy. As Padme dies, the twins are born and Anakin finally becomes Darth Vader. The score does not seek redemption, instead it wraps itself in tragedy in also mournful beauty. Padme's ruminations captures the stillness before the storm with ghostly ambiance. While the final minutes of the film weave together the old and new, we hear shades of Luke's theme, Leia's theme, and the haunting reprise of the Imperial March, all foreshadowing what is to come. But the genius of Williams' composition is how none of it feels jarring. It flows like destiny, tying together generations of story through music alone. This is why Revenge of the Sith's score is more than just the best in Star Wars. It is one of the greatest scores in cinema history. It carries the weight of a galaxy collapsing, the grief of love lost, the birth of tyranny, and the ghost of hope that is yet to appear. Few soundtracks feel like this one does, like it knows your heart before you do and breaks it in the most beautiful way imaginable. The brilliance of Revenge of the Sith lies not only in its storytelling or its audio-visual grandeur, but in the performances that give the tragedy its pulse, raw, expressive, and deeply human. The acting in Episode 3 is often overshadowed by the saga's scale, but a closer inspection reveals performances that are layered, conflicted, and emotionally volatile. Hayden Christensen, often dismissed in earlier entries, delivers in this film a portrayal of Anakin Skywalker that is searingly intense and quietly tortured. His transformation into Darth Vader is not a sudden collapse, but a slow and painful unraveling that Christensen embodies with nuance. His haunted eyes, his barely contained rage, his moments of silence and cold calculation. These are not the marks of overacting, but of a man boiling beneath the surface, torn between love and power, fear and loyalty. This isn't a character sleepwalking into evil, it is a man whose every breath is a war with his own soul. Christensen's chemistry with Ewan McGregor is essential, and it reaches its devastating apex in this very film. McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi is easily his finest within the trilogy, portraying a man whose devotion to his friend is constantly clashing with his duty to the Jedi Order and to the Republic. The emotional whiplash of Obi-Wan having to suspect, confront, and ultimately destroy the brother he helped raise is played with heart-breaking restraint. McGregor doesn't shout his pain, he carries it in his furrowed brow, his trembling voice, and his weary eyes. His delivery of lines like
I have failed you, Anakin.
or the now iconic
You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
are not just well written, they're thunderous because of the sincerity with which McGregor inhabits the character. Obi-Wan is not merely just a Jedi Master in this film, he is a man clinging to the last threads of hope, only to watch them turn to ash in his very hands. Natalie Portman too is a quiet, beautiful storm in this film, whereas Padme Amidala, her role becomes more tragic, more introspective, and heartbreakingly human. She spends much of the film observing the galaxy unravel, powerless to stop it, and Portman reflects that helplessness with aching subtlety. Her scene on the balcony with Anakin, bathed in dusk and foreshadowing, is played with devastating quiet. No screaming, no fanfare, just the look of a woman who knows she is losing the man she loves and can't reach him. Portman communicates volumes with her posture, her soft voice, the breaking in her gaze, her final moments, holding onto her life as her children breathe into this world. They are not grandiose performances, they are intimate and all the more powerful for it. In a film of quite literal galactic stakes, it is her emotional implosion that makes the impending rise of the Empire feel so personal, so human, and so irreversibly sad. And then there is Ian McDiarmid, whose portrayal of Chancellor Palpatine, the puppet master of the entire saga, is nothing short of operatic brilliance. McDiarmid manages to balance charm, manipulation, and outright malevolence with breathtaking precision. He shifts from the calm grandfatherly politician to the cackling embodiment of evil with a theatricality that never feels out of place, it feels earned. His Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise monologue is a masterclass in subtle seduction, delivered with hushed nuance, menace, and an eerie calm, planting the seeds of doubt in Anakin's heart with terrifying skill. And when he finally unveils his true nature, his performance becomes unhinged and magnificent. Flashes of madness that mirror the collapse of democracy itself. It's McDermott's portrayal that binds the film's political tension and personal tragedy, transforming Palpatine from a background villain into a Shakespearean tyrant, pulling the galaxy's strings with venomous glee. Together, this cast doesn't just act, they bleed emotion into every scene, making Revenge of the Sith an unforgettable masterclass in both subtle and operatic performances. In all that has been explored, the unmatched emotional weight of its narrative, the haunting grandeur of its score, the thunderous and nuanced performances of its cast, and the undeniable cinematic gravitas that flows through every single frame, it becomes ever clearer why Revenge of the Sith is without hesitation or apology the greatest Star Wars film ever made. While many elevate The Empire Strikes Back for its maturity, its darkness, and its iconic revelations, and rightfully so, it never quite rips the soul out of the viewer the way Episode 3 manages. It never dares to plunge as deep into the abyss of destiny, loyalty, betrayal, and love as George Lucas's 2005 epic. Revenge of the Sith, therefore, is not content with simply being an entry in the saga. It chooses instead to stand as a monument, brutal, operatic, and beautiful in its inevitability. It's not merely the fall of a hero, it is the death of innocence, of institutions, of hope itself, and Lucas has the courage to take us there, refusing to soften the blow throughout this entire film. And yet, what I've written, what I've unpacked in these 4 chapters, is only a glimpse into the towering brilliance of this film. I've spoken of the story, the score, the performances, and the emotional weight, but Revenge of the Sith is more than just these 4 pillars. It is packed to the brim with moments of cinematic excellence that deserve endless upon endless analysis. The rich political subtext, eerie relevant to every era, the symbolic visual storytelling, Anakin cloaked in shadow, Obi-Wan bathed in light, the gut-punching editing that parallels Anakin's betrayal with Order 66's massacre, the unspoken dread that hangs over the entire runtime like a thundercloud, the choreography of the lightsaber battles, especially on Mustafar, where every rage and sorrow become indistinguishable, the way the Force itself is treated like a tragic religion, collapsing under the weight of its own hubris. Every scene, every line, every carefully composed frame has meaning, layered, intentional, and timeless. It's the film that dares to make you feel, not cheer, not laugh, not sit in comfort, but feel in the deepest, rawest sense. This is the only Star Wars film that makes your stomach churn when Anakin slaughters the Jedi, that makes your heart ache when Padme asks,
"This is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause."
that makes your throat close when Obi-Wan screams at the friend he must destroy, not because he hates him, but because he still loves him. There is a genuine weight in Episode 3 that never leaves you. It lingers, it echoes in your mind long after the credits roll, and it is the rare kind of film that reshapes everything that came before it and casts a long mournful shadow over everything that follows. Watching it is not just experiencing a movie, it's enduring a tragedy that redefines what tragedy in a galaxy far, far away can truly be. And that is why, even though I have only touched upon a handful of its many incredible qualities, Revenge of the Sith is not only my favourite Star Wars film, or even just the greatest entry in the prequel trilogy, it is, without a single flicker of doubt in my heart and soul, my favourite movie of all time. It is the one I return to when I want to feel something profound, something shattering, something beautiful in its destruction and devastation. No other film, Star Wars or otherwise, captures the collision of epic scale and personal heartbreak with such brilliant conviction. No other film dares to be so grand, yet so intimate. No other film takes the mythology we've grown up with and turns it into a story that cuts as deeply as any saber could. Episode 3, therefore, is more than a film. It is a scar on the saga, a poetic masterpiece, carved into the fabric of modern myth, and for those of us who see its brilliance, it is a crown jewel that will forever reign in our hearts.
Oh, I track all my love.